Fine. What else? Lisbeth! No, the other was. Oh, there's no others. Lisbeth.
No economic control.
No economic regulation. Control is fine. Christopher?
No president, no executive.
Okay, no executive. No executive. No judiciary.
Or legislative.
Each state has one.
And legislative by state. And then needed unanimity.
There we go.
Okay. Yeah, was there another?
Virtual representation. That's what they didn't want.
Right. So they had. So where was their actual representation? On what level? Was it on the state level? Good. And we talked about how a confederation is a group, and this group, the things that they were grouping, confederating, were what? They were not confederating people. What were they? Were confederating states. And we went through yesterday at the end of class that we've created a government with no power to tax, no standing army, no economic regulation, no executive, no judiciary, and a very limited legislature. Why create such a weak government? What was their motive? Jill? Protect the people's what? Rights and liberties. That we talked about the Declaration of Independence, how liberty is kind of a whole thing. We give up part of our liberty to live in society. But the problem was the Articles created a government too weak, that the government could not protect people's life, liberty, and property. That the government was having a lot of trouble with foreign affairs. The government was broke. We went through lots of the problems that the government was having. So, by about 1785, people said, all right, not working. We need to improve it.
1785?
By 1785, it's obvious that it's not working.
With all of that now?
Yeah, the whole Articles of Confederation are not working. I'm sorry?
Except for land policy.
What? Except for the land policy. Yes, we talked about their successful land policy. This is true. Don't forget that. But by 1785, the economy is in a depression. The currency is worthless. Britain's troops have not left their western forts. No one takes the United States seriously on the international stage. States are throwing up tariff barriers against other states. The New Jersey and New York militia almost start firing shots over tomatoes of all things. There's a big dispute over this. So the same people, by and large, the founders, this kind of group of people, said, all right, we got to fix this. Eventually, they met in 1787 in Philadelphia. And they met with the goal of changing the Articles. One of the first things they decided to do was get rid of the Articles altogether. They said, we are starting from scratch. And they wrote over a period of about 2.5 months, about 10 weeks, they ended up with this document that we call the Constitution. Constitution of the United States of America. 1787. Comes into effect in 1789. But the reason we've kind of done this kind of as a chart is because the problems that the Articles of Confederation were having are responded to directly in the Constitution that is set up. So, does the Constitution give the government the power to tax? What do you think?
Yes.
Yes. Does the Constitution permit a standing army? Yes. Does the Constitution permit Congress to make economic regulations?
Yes.
Yes. Constitution provide for a chief executive?
Yes.
What do we call that person? President. Does the Constitution provide for a judiciary?
Yes.
Yes, what do we call that?
Supreme Court.
Court. Who is represented in the legislature?
Congress.
Who is represented in Congress? The states and the people. A legislature that represents the people in what's known as the House of Representatives, and that represents the states in the Senate. And unanimity was no longer required. It was based on majority rule. All right. Here is our new government. Well, let's kind of look through the provisions of this government. This is a government with the power to tax, the power to have a standing army, the power to regulate an economy. It has a chief executive, a Supreme Court, and a legislature that no longer requires unanimous consent. What's the worry now?
Too much.
Too much that this government has the potential
In the middle.
to chunk off a much bigger chunk of someone's liberty. Imagine liberty as this big giant ball that Deontay is carrying around. Deontay wants the most liberty that he can find. This government, it is feared, with the power to tax Deontay, the power to have a standing army that can bother him or even conscript him, make him forced to serve in it, that can regulate his business, might make his big ball of liberty smaller. You want to keep your big ball of liberty. Walk around with it. Yeah. So, the potential problem here is not that we have a government too weak to accomplish its functions, but we have the possibility of having a government that is too strong and will do what to Deontay's big ball of liberty? Yeah, pop it, shrink it, chip away at it, whatever you want. So, the founders bake into the Constitution as many checks and balances as they can. What does that mean? Their goal, that they have blown up the power of the government a lot more. But what they want to do is make sure that no one in that government has all the power. They want to make sure that no one in this new federal government can take the people's rights and liberties away. So what they do is they don't allow any one group to have all the power. So they do a couple different things. In general, now, here's always the danger zone. I always assume that you know something about how American government is supposed to work, and more often than not, you don't. How, here, this third grade. According to the way the Constitution is written, how do you pass a law in the United States? Who votes? Congress does what? Congress writes a bill. Then what happens? They vote on it. Which house has to vote yes?
The Senate is. Senate.
And the Senate. Both houses. Both houses, the Senate has to pass it, the House of Representatives have to pass it. They have to pass exactly the same law. Once that happens, what happens next? No. What? It goes to the president. Both houses, sends a bill to the president can either choose to sign it. If the president signs it, what happens? It's a law. What happens if the president, what?
Impeach, no.
Veto.
Oh, veto.
What happens if the president vetoes
It's
it?
not a law.
Unless
Everybody
It
has
goes-
to sign it.
back to Congress. If the president vetoes, Congress can pass it with a 2/3 vote in both houses.
So by 66%.
67%. What does this mean? Can the president make law without Congress? No. Can Congress make law without the president? Yes, but
No.
2/3 of both houses have to agree on
To
it.
be more.
It has to be very popular. Congress has to pass a law that 2/3 of Congress wants to pass it over the president's veto.
Would the president have to explain why he doesn't
Nope.
wanna?
He is, he is supposed to. The president, basically the Constitution says the president shall put in writing and give to the clerk of the Senate by the time that he has 2 weeks, it's all explained out in the Constitution.
At this time, will all senior rubies please report to the main office? All senior rubies, please report to the main office. Thank you.
So the president explains why he vetoed the law, and Congress either then passes it over the president's veto, or it dies and does not become law. It's a fairly rare thing for a law to pass over the president's veto. It has not happened to President Obama yet, but it probably will eventually. It starts to happen more as presidents weaken and get to the end of their terms. And, so,
They do that all day.
I'm sorry?
They do that all day. The laws, that's what they do all day.
No. No. What does a congressman do all day? Most of the time, they're not voting on much anything. They're in committee meetings, they're drafting laws, they're arguing, they're meeting with citizens. You can just Google, what is the average day in the life of a congressman? There are a lot of committee meetings. This, in and of itself, guys, divides up power. That laws cannot pass with only one branch unless that law is really, really popular. And if you notice, the president cannot pass a law without Congress. Congress can, in theory, pass a law without the president, but there's a lot of people in Congress, and there's only one president. So the founders said, we want to give Congress more power because they're a better representative of everybody than just one single president. There are other ways that power is divided and that government is made weaker in order to make sure that Deontay's big ball of liberty doesn't get too small. The power to tax must start in the House, which is the people's house in Congress. That the Senate cannot initiate a tax bill. Tax bills can only be initiated by the House.
They just limit the power.
This is the point of all of this column, is how do we limit and check? And because here's the power. Imagine power is this big giant blob. We are trying to divide up the blob so that the blob cannot all land on poor Deontay's liberty. So that's the reason Congress needs the president to pass a law. President needs Congress to pass a law. Tax laws have to start in the House of Representatives, which is the body closest to you, the people. Now, it used to be the case that taxes had to fall on people equally. That got chucked out with the 16th Amendment in 1913. But again, this is something that is an attempt to limit and check the power of government. How about, this is a good one, standing army. American military power is divided into both the legislative and the executive branch. Who is the commander-in-chief of all American military forces? The president. The president is commander, is always commander-in-chief.
But didn't he sign that contract that gives the general permission to take over or something like that?
No.
He didn't sign it yet?
Sign what?
I'm serious. It happened. No, like I was learning about this. No, like something tried.
The president is the commander-in-chief.
So if you guys would look at
The vice
Well, as soon as the president dies, the vice president becomes president.
I'm like,
And then there's the president who's still commander-in-chief.
so let's
There's a whole line of succession. And they're all never in the same place, all together. So if during the State of the Union address, someone blows up a nuclear bomb over the Capitol, someone in the line of succession is somewhere else. And then he becomes president with constitutional authority to be commander-in-chief. Aurelio, can I remind you what Abraham Lincoln once said?
all right.
Abraham Lincoln once said, "Do not trust everything you read on the internet."
No.
Now, although the president is commander-in-chief, Congress declares war and funds the military. So if the president is ordering troops to do things, but Congress says we're not funding it, it doesn't happen. It is a check and a balance. The president cannot just go willy-nilly sending troops everywhere without the consent of Congress. No, it's an equal decision because Congress cannot order troops anywhere. Congress can pay for the troops, but it's only the president that can give the orders. Now, someone said Johnson and Vietnam. At the beginning of Vietnam, Congress passed a law called the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution. We'll do this in the spring. Gulf of Tonkin Resolution said President Johnson has the power to use American military to protect South Vietnam from communists. With that permission, it wasn't a declaration of war, but it was a congressional permission slip for Johnson to take us into Vietnam. Same thing happened with the Korean War. Congress gives Harry Truman permission to repel the communist invasion of South Korea. Same thing happened in 1991. Congress gives President George H.W. Bush the power to get Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait. Same thing happens in 2001. Congress gives George W. Bush the power to get Al-Qaeda out of Afghanistan. Same thing happened in 2003. Congress gives President George W. Bush the power to remove Saddam Hussein from Iraq. It is a dual process. President commands the troops. Congress declares war, which it hasn't done since World War II, but funds it. The military doesn't run unless the military is paid for. And that's only Congress can do.
You know that journalist from the White House that got killed over there? That they murdered him or something?
Which
Like
one?
ISIS.
Recently?
Yeah.
The ISIS guy that cut his head off? Yeah.
Okay, whose action is it to do something about that?
The president. So, all right, so Helen's excellent question. Right now, there is something of an American bombing campaign going on in the Middle East. The president used Congress's 2001 authority. He didn't go back to Congress and ask for new authority. He said, the authority that Congress gave in 2001 to go after Al-Qaeda counts enough for this. But so if the president decides that there needs to be an American military response, he's the one that gives the orders. He is the commander-in-chief. He gets on the phone with the Secretary of Defense. Secretary of Defense comes to the Oval Office. The president says, Mr. Secretary, do we have a plan to bomb these ISIS people in northern Iraq? Yes, we do. Secretary of Defense calls up the commander-in-chief of what's called the Central Command, which has authority over the Middle East. That's General Saddam. Now we're dealing with a military guy. He's the guy in charge, Dempsey. He's the guy, C&C, of Central Command. Secretary of Defense calls him up, says, General such and such. President has given orders to conduct this bombing campaign. And then that general gives the order to all the other people in the military and planes start flying. That's how the system works. The Army, Navy, Marines, whatever, doesn't do anything without a presidential order. Now, the presidential order can be very, very simple. Franklin Roosevelt says to defeat Nazi Germany. That's the order. Now it's the military's job to figure out how to do that. But without an order from the commander-in-chief, nothing happens. If Congress doesn't like what the president is doing, they can stop paying for it. That's the check and the balance. If there's no money to buy fuel for the airplanes, guess what? The airplanes come home. And no bombing campaign. That's Congress's power. No, the point is that no, and this is, this is one of the most important powers there is. What power is more important than the ability to unleash lethal force? That's the government's most powerful power. You can kill, the president has the power to launch a full-scale nuclear war. So that power is divided. That power to declare war, order troops, order people to die. The founders did not want one person to have all of that authority. So they divided it between Congress and the president. Things like treaties. Treaties get signed by the president, but it has to be approved by the Senate. Senate doesn't approve a treaty doesn't count. It's a check and a balance. The president just can't go sign treaties that the people, as represented in the Senate, don't want. It all works like that, or is supposed to. We talked about kind of the power of the president. We talked about how if you look through the Constitution, there are checks and balances all over everything. The power to, if the president breaks the law, Congress can impeach and remove him. The Supreme Court judges the constitutionality of laws. It all fits in together. And the point of it is to take that big blob of power and cut it up and divide it so that no one person can exercise it all. So that it can't smother Deontay's big ball of liberty. But there is something else that the founders did. They very specifically created a very limited government. Excuse me for a moment.
It's like the content.
Here's the Constitution. Listen. The founders in the Constitution wrote down what the government can do. I'm going to read out the list. Congress may. These are the laws Congress can pass. Congress can pass laws about collecting taxes. Congress can borrow money. Congress can, this is one we forgot. Congress can regulate commerce with foreign countries and interstate commerce. Not within a state, but between states and between foreign countries and the United States. Congress can make laws about how to become an American citizen. Congress can coin money. Congress can punish people for counterfeiting our money. Congress can establish post offices. Congress can establish a patent office. Congress can establish courts below the Supreme Court. Congress can punish pirates. Pirates for piracy. Congress can declare war. Congress can make privateers.
Can I have your attention, please? Just a reminder, those students that detention today be held in room 15 at 4 o'clock.
Congress can make rules about capturing pirates. Congress can raise armies. Congress can create a navy. Congress can make rules for the people in the army and the navy. Congress can call forth the state militias to serve under the federal government. Congress can make rules about disciplining the militia when it is called under the rules of the federal government. Congress can make a capital city. And that's it. Got a long list?
You said yes.
That is it. Anything in there about education? Anything in there about social security?
No.
Anything in there about health care? Anything in there about pretty much anything? That is an incredibly short list.
Let's go to the next
There's
section.
some others that you take out and replace it with like.
Didn't they add?
They added nothing.
They didn't put anything that we.
What's a patent office?
A patent office is if you invent something, you, like, so no one can steal your invention. And make, right,
Oh, like
copyright.
nobody
exactly.
can do like.
Right, that's copyrighted, exactly.
So nobody can take money.
So your,
So
we just came up with all these extra things.
yeah, so I want to leave, so Steve's point correctly is, well, where the hell the rest of the stuff the federal government come from? Because nowadays, federal government does everything. Well, not everything, but a lot. One of the stories of the 220 years of American history is when and why and how did the federal government start doing all of these other things. But as written, this is a very limited government. I mean, government can make money, make the post office, make an army and a navy, make sure no one can steal your invention, tax people. That's patents, yeah. But other than that, it's not a long list. And then power was even further divided. So, first of all, we have checks and balances. Then we limit the things that government can do in the first place. Yes, Nelson. No, go ahead.
I forgot.
She's gonna ask you and she's like, oh, you never picked on me, so she's gonna hear that.
I always pick you.
I reached it like 4 times today.
What's your question?
I forgot.
Think of it. Another thing they did was something called federalism, which is the topic of tonight's lecture. Legislative, executive, judicial. At the federal level in Washington, D.C., is there a federal legislature?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's it called? What is it called? We've only been talking about it for the last hour.
Congress?
Congress. Is there a federal executive?
Yes.
The president.
Oh my god.
Is there a federal judiciary?
Yes.
Yes, Supreme Court. So, but here's my question. If the power of the federal government is limited, as written in the Constitution, who does the rest of the stuff? Oh,
Senate.
no, that the legislature.
Oh yeah, that's the legislature.
That's Congress, folks. Congress can only do that very small list of things. What about the people in where? Where does everything else happen?
In the states.
Good, Elizabeth. In the not in government, in the states. And in the state of New Jersey, is there a legislative branch? Yes, there is. You vote, or your parents, if they vote for state senators, they vote for state representatives. Is there a state chief executive? The governor. Governor Christie.
Wait, who's the senator?
Our state senator? Your state senator or mine?
What state do you live in?
New Jersey?
Yeah.
No, your state senator or your federal senator?
The one you put for legislature.
For which one? Federal or state?
State.
I have no idea who your state senator is.
How about your state senator?
My state senator is a guy named Vastine, I think.
I don't know.
There's different senators.
Guys,
Oh,
this is the point I am trying to make here. There are levels of government.
What state do you live in?
Wait, there's different like senators.
Yeah.
Areas? I thought it was one. Oh, there's three. There's three. Never mind.
No. Okay, this is what federalism is. There is a federal legislature. We call it Congress. There's a federal executive, we call it the president. There's a federal judiciary, we call it the Supreme Court. There is also a state, how many state legislatures are there? 50. There are 50 state legislatures. There's a state legislature in New Jersey. There's a state legislature in New Mexico. There's a state legislature in Ohio. There's a state legislature in Hawaii.
Texas.
There's a state legislature in Texas. What does the state legislature do in New Jersey? What sort of laws?
The laws that are Congress passed.
The state.
What if it was a benefit?
Laws for their state.
Laws
Limited.
Limit.
What laws? Is there a constitution for New Jersey? Yes, there is. There's a constitution in the state of New Jersey. What stuff does the state of New Jersey pass? Why? Marvella, you're right. Why?
Because it's like separate from other.
Separate from what?
Other states.
Who does not have authority over education? What government? Yes! All the stuff that the federal government does not do, the state does. There is no federal education law yet, although it's coming quickly.
Why?
That's what Common Core is. Anyone here ever heard anyone complaining about Common Core and your park testing? All of that stuff is federal stuff on state education. That's why a lot of people don't like it.
I hate it. I like it.
Guys, here's the point. We have, okay, let's finish this. Is there stuff, because I'm going to answer, frack jelly bean, we only got 6 minutes. Is there a level of government below state?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What is it?
The city.
Your city government. Is there a city legislature?
Yeah.
A city council? Is there a city executive? The mayor. Does Elizabeth have its own local court system? Yes. Traffic court, that's Elizabeth's municipal court. Now, Nelsie, who seems to be, we're going to unconfuse Nelsie right now. Nelsie, do we vote for people in the national legislature? Yes, we do. Nelsie, well, you don't because you're not 18. Nelsie votes. No. Nelsie votes for 1 state representative and 2 federal senators. Nelsie votes for 1 governor. Nelsie also votes for 1 state representative and 2 state senators. And she votes for 1 governor, 1 president and 1 vice president. She also votes for 1 governor and 1 lieutenant governor. Nelsie also votes for 1 person on the city council. Nelsie also votes for 1 mayor. In some states, not New Jersey, but in some states you get to vote for judges too. Nelsie can also vote for this funky thing called Board of Education. If Nelsie is so inclined, Nelsie has quite a bit. Nelsie can vote, and in some states, and including New Jersey, there's a county level of government too, a 4th level. Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Wait, what is
Leslie Agnew says, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. He's your state senator.
Oh, that's what we actually, you were like, I don't know who your state senator is.
Yeah.
But I know
I forgot. Yeah, he's not my state senator.
Oh my God. What state do you live in?
Different ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
What state do you live in?
Don't live in Elizabeth.
There's more than one.
Okay, so do you know how there is, in the federal Senate, there's 100 senators from 50 states. Okay? In the New Jersey Senate, there are 50 whatever senators from a certain number. I don't even know how they do it, quite frankly.
Is there a county
I'm sorry?
for every county?
I don't think it's by county. I think it's bigger than that. It's
By
smaller
city?
than that. It's by district, okay? There are state senators are not the same as federal senators. Our two federal senators are Bob Menendez and Cory Booker, okay? They are not,
But they live in New Jersey.
they have to.
So they're ours.
Yes, but those are not your state senators.
So why do you not say it?
Can someone explain this to Nelsie?
Wait, they're not our state senators. They can go anywhere they want.
Nelsie. They are our federal senators.
Over our
They
state.
represent New Jersey in Washington. Menendez and Booker represent, this is how she's gonna get this. Menendez and Booker represent New Jersey in Washington.
So they don't represent us in.
In Trenton.
Yeah.
No, Lesniak represents his district in Trenton.
Just the.
Your, that's the capital of New Jersey. Your city councilman represents your ward at City Hall,
Okay, I get that.
okay?
Yeah, I do. That's a lot of people.
Yes, it is. Yeah, in fact, this is very unusual in the world. Most countries do not have a federal system.
What's the difference between a representative and senator?
It depends on the state. At the federal level, senators serve 6 years, representatives serve 2. Senators have a lot more foreign policy responsibilities. Senators approve presidential nominations. For example, a senator is a more exalted position. Yes. Someone goes to Washington just for this district of New Jersey.
So, like, people represent, like, New Jersey and other, like, states.
No. Cory Booker and Bob Menendez only represent New Jersey. Pennsylvania has its 2 own senators. New York has its 2 own senators.
So it's California.
California has its 2 own senators. Wyoming has its 2 own senators.
How many senators?
100 senators in total, 2 from every state. Has 2. Every state has 2 senators and representatives. Who told you to pack up?
Sit down.
Sit down. I hate that.
Rude.
You're free to leave when the bell rings. If the bell interrupts you now, you're free to go, but don't get up before the bell. I do. It's rude. I don't start before the bell rings. You don't end until the bell rings. I don't start while you're all coming in here. The last thing I want to say is the founders did this on purpose. They want all the power so diffuse, all the power so cut up and limited and separate, so that no one person can threaten Deontay's big ball of liberty.
Yes.
That the idea is, if there's a problem here, this problem can't metastasize beyond that, because there's a check and balance here, there's a check and balance here, and there's a big dividing line here. The point is that no one should be so powerful to take Deontay's liberty away from him. Goodbye.
Probably thought it was a joke and I'd rather keep it that way.
Felix Galarza, please cast by the main office. Felix Galarza.
Talking about you.
Never talk about it, never pass. There's always, look up, you know what you want to look up if you're interested in this? I'm going to tell you what you should look up. Write it down, but if you're, because it is now, look up what's called continuity of government. Look at that, because that's what happens. What's that?
I'll debate with you.
Oh.
This one,
I can see your like the enlightenment in your eyes.
What are the consequences of the next city law? Because you not need years. So you need allies, reasons, and outcomes. Okay? Move on. Oh, guys, turn to cheers. Can you guys turn to cheers for me? I know there's like 5 of you left, but that would be very helpful.
Power of five. Oh, guys, I got this table. Please stop recording.
Naomi.
Have a good one, ladies. Have a good night, guys.